Thanks for joining me for this February edition of Local Image, our first all-new show for the new year. And I couldn't be happier to welcome back our first guest for 2015. He is author Jonathan Odell, and his new book, Miss Hazel and the Rosa Parks League, was just released this month to great reviews. It's so nice to have you back here, Jonathan.
Well, it's great to be here, Judy. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And we had you here in 2012.
I was looking at the dates. It was
Yes.
it was around June, I think.
Yeah,
like that.
and we talked about your book, The Healing, which is
Right.
actually the second novel that you wrote. And this current book is, I guess you call it a reimagining of the first book,
That's right.
which was A View from Delphi. How did that come about? What's that all about?
The View from Delphi came out in 2004. It was my first book. And I was learning to write on the book. And I really thought it'd probably be the only book that I would ever write. So I put everything into it. It was a 500-page book, which is really big for a first-time author. And I sold it without an agent and got a small publisher, McAdam Cage, to release it at the time. McAdam Cage usually does a great job, but they had just signed on their first mega seller, which was The Time Traveler's Wife.
Oh my goodness.
So it sucked all the resources out of the release. So I had a big release in Minnesota and a big release in my home state of Mississippi on both ends of the river. It did great here. It was Talking Volumes pick. It was Carrie Miller's very first choice, her very first show. And then it went to paperback, but because McAdam Cage really didn't have the finances to promote it, it kind of went away. And when the second book came out, The Healing, it did so well, my agent called me up and she says, "Oh my gosh, I just read your first book." And I said, "Yeah, Marley, how'd you like it?" She says, "This is so much better than The Help. I'm so angry. It should have got more attention." And I said, "Well, that's music to my ears. You can keep telling me that." And she said, "If we only had the rights." And I said, "Well, McAdam Cage just went under and the rights reverted to me."
Oh my goodness.
So Marley Rusoff is my agent. She's agent to Pat Conroy and several of the other big megastars. So she said, "I'm really interested, and there are a lot of books like yours who, through no fault of their own, are great books, get great reviews, but nobody hears about them. So I want to pick those books up and do a really nice job on them, make them have beautiful covers, things that you can feel and see, and she says, "But if you do this, we need to do a rewrite." And I went, "Oh, okay, what's that?" And she says, "Well, the book is about two women, Vida and Hazel. And the book is about that relationship, but they don't meet until page 240 in the book." She says, "Everything you wrote is beautiful. It is beautiful dialogue, beautiful language, except it doesn't drive the story. What I love to see is you reimagine the book where they meet a little earlier, so the reader can be a little bit more into the relationship."
It's great. The characters are, you just bring them to life so beautifully. And actually, tell us a little bit more about the characters, because Miss Hazel is based on your own mom. My goodness.
To her horror, when I first wrote the book, it was based on my mother, who is still living. She'll be 87 on February the 12th.
Good for her.
And she's going to be the guest of honor at a reading we're going to do of the book in Hattiesburg, Mississippi. When I wrote the book, wrote the book, I really had two questions in mind that I wanted to answer. One was, how did my family get to be as crazy as they were? And a lot of that has to do with my mother. She is a real character, and luckily with a good sense of humor. And the other one was, I didn't get to Minnesota. I had a career in business. I didn't start writing until I was 45. And it wasn't until I lived here in Minnesota for several years away from Mississippi that it hit me that I lived around African Americans all my life, but I never saw them. I didn't even know what their story was, except for the story that it was safe for them to project to us, which was, "Oh, we're happy, we love white people, and we love working for you." And I realized, wow, that's what we forced them to say. So I know nothing about who they were. So the other question was, what went on beyond my white bubble within the black community? Who were the heroes? Who were the villains? What were their lives like? How were they living out their days when they weren't responding to white folks?
Right.
Because they had their own lives. So and I started with the second woman is Vida. I knew her for about a year when I was 5 years old, and my mother hired her when my mother wanted to try working again. And Vida and I had one thing in common. She hated me as much as I hated her. It wasn't one of those family stories where the maid is one of the family and et cetera. No, we were
at odds.
We were competitors, and we were competing for. I wanted my mother to come back. I thought because she came to work, my mother had to leave the house, and it was my job to take care of my mother. Even then, she needed taken care of. It was my job to take care of my brothers, not this woman who walked in.
Right.
So I would make up lies about her. I would tell my mother that her name was actually Alma, that Alma had worn my mother's clothes while my mother was gone.
Oh my goodness.
Which in the South and the Jim Crow, black people don't wear white people's clothes. I told my mother that Alma was stealing coffee, because I always heard my father say about how expensive coffee was. So I would take coffee, throw it down the drain, and blame it on the maid.
Goodness.
I did everything I could to get her fired. And finally she left after about a year. I didn't know until years and years later in writing this book how much danger I put that woman in. Because even the word of a 5-year-old kid could get a black woman killed in those days. So that was a tension I wanted to bring to the story. I wanted to focus on that power differential between these two women. And I wanted the child who's looking for a mother to be thrown in between them. Both women have lost their first children.
Right.
Through grief. That's about the only thing they have in common.
Right.
Besides their distrust and hatred for each other is their loss of their children.
And there are so many other great characters in this book, and they all are dealing with these different issues. I mean, different perspectives on kind of they're all in this together, but they all bring something different that they're dealing with, and you almost have some sympathy for some of the bad people.
Thank you.
You
That's
know what
the
I
highest
mean?
compliment you could pay an author.
You almost
Thank
have
you.
some sympathy for the bad people. But the thing is that even today now, I mean, as an author reflecting on your own past and writing a book like this and seeing what's been happening in the news lately, what's happening in our communities lately, how do you process that? How do you feel about that today?
Right. With the murders that were going on, the police shootings, whether they were justified or unjustified, just the reaction of the country put me into depression. The dialogue over were they worthy to get killed or not? Were they bad enough to be killed? No, it's like, wow,
Right.
this is the conversation we were having back in the 1950s when I was growing up. Then with the whole thing with the Selma movie, which has been fascinating, the conversation. I mean, a lot of white people do not like that movie because supposedly the director, who is a black woman, vilified LBJ. And I think the problem is white folks aren't used to seeing movies about race without the white person being the hero. White people are supposed to save black folks. And in this movie, blacks are moving out of Black History Month and saying, wait a minute, we want the whole bag. We want to tell our version of American history. And that's scary for a lot of people.
Right.
So there's been a lot of criticism, but I love what the director said in an interview. She said, you know, when I made this movie, Selma, I wanted to do something radical. I wanted to make a movie where black people think. And it was like, that's perfect. And so we have to ask ourselves, are we ready for African Americans to come on the national stage and tell their interpretation of history, rather than relegating it to Black History Month? We let them have Rosa Parks or Martin Luther King in a sanitized, calmed-down version. So I think the dialogue is great. I'm really excited about the book coming out at this time.
And the crux of the book, besides these great relationships, is the fact that you show Rosa Parks, this situation is happening with this uppity black woman in Alabama who's doing this thing on the bus, and it's getting all these other people in Mississippi and Delphi in the area all upset. The white
Right.
folks are all upset, and it just kind of takes you through that time period, but through the eyes of these women who find they have a little more in common than they maybe thought.
That's exactly right, and that you hit it out. You hit on one of the purposes of the book. Is that as I was doing my research, I was ready to write about black male heroes. And I found out the people who led the civil rights movement in Mississippi and Alabama and Georgia were mostly women, and they never got the attention. Even Rosa Parks, I didn't know this, but she was an activist putting her life on the line long before she refused to give up her seat. She was seasoned and she was young, and yet she's been portrayed in history as this tired old woman whose feet hurt.
Right.
She was almost militant, but she needed to be calmed down. And the black preachers were to blame for that. When she wanted to address that big audience who she inspired, one of the black preachers patted her on the shoulder and says, "That's okay, Rosa, you've done enough." They needed her to be this soft icon of the movement, not a real life flesh and blood angry woman who was pushing for her rights. And I found that was true in Mississippi, that in Mississippi it was the women who, the preachers mostly fled because they didn't want the character in my book, Levi. They liked the situation they're in. They've established this comfortable position within the community where they say what the white folks want to say, and they carry things to the black folks, but they stay out of trouble. They don't rock the boat because they know if they rock the boat, they lose their church.
Yeah.
It was the women who came along. They didn't have anything left to lose but their lives. So I really wanted to emphasize what women did,
Right.
both white and black, and how they get overwritten by history.
And with all that, there's some other great plots in this book that just keep you wanting to turn that next page. I really enjoyed the book.
Thank you.
Where can folks maybe hear more about the book or see
Certainly.
you coming up?
Yes, we got a website up, and it's my name, JonathanOdell.com. So all the appearances on there. We are be touring all through February. Just hit appearances on JonathanOdell.com, and I'll keep that updated. You'll know where we'll be. And on the tour, I didn't want it just to be a white man talking. So in some of the larger locations, I've asked a friend of mine. Her name is Margaret Block. I've got her on the website as well. She helped inform the first book when I was writing. She actually, as a teenager, worked with SNCC in the 1960s in Mississippi as an activist. One of those women who put her life on the line, was chased by the Klan. They had to hurry her out of the county to get away from the Klan. They put her in the back of a hearse in a coffin to slip her across the Tallahatchie County line where Emmett Till was killed. So she's got these amazing stories. So we're going to talk together. I'll talk about my understanding as a white man, what I've learned through history, and then she'll bring us up to date on what the truth was in those days.
Right. Well, Miss Hazel, love that book.
Great.
Thanks so much, Jonathan.
Thank you, Judy.
Now, we'll leave the southern setting of Jonathan's book and come back to the cold realities of our Minnesota winter. But just because it's cold doesn't mean you can't have fun and be active outside. In fact, this next segment shows one way you can elevate your winter fun to a whole new level. Take a look.
Deep into a Minnesota winter.
It's a little bit of a workout, so you can stay warm once you get going. So you can do this on skis or a snowboard, okay?
A group of people find joy on the icy tundra.
It's the only thing that makes winters in Minnesota tolerable for me.
Everything's cold.
Snow kiting
Here we go.
gives people an escape from the winter blues found during these short, cold winter days.
Cabin fever is a bad thing, so you want to get out and do something. A lot of people have skis in the wintertime. A lot of people have snowboards, ice skates, and all of these things are usable with a kite. And it's just a great way to extend that investment already and give yourself an opportunity to play.
Some use it to find calm.
So I enjoy the ride. It's really, really fun. It's an endless pursuit of entertainment. It's definitely a way for me to get off the grid and away from anything that's going on and just to get plugged into something. And there's a lot of ways to enjoy doing that. Rock climbing, snowmobiling, whatever your thing is. And I think a lot of us that enjoy kiting, we really find some sense of peace about doing this.
while others find excitement.
Basically, no trick is ever good until you get it caught on film, so no matter what you can do.
The ability to harness the wind and go out and ride and do things, and what draws most people, I think, to this sport is the ability to jump and do tricks and things like that. What's really amazing about kiting is that you don't need jumps or ramps or anything like that. You just send the kite and it'll lift you off the ice or water or whatever you happen to be on, and you can spin around and do tricks and hopefully land it, and you know, it's a lot of fun. It's always a challenge. There's always something new to learn.
Using any opportunity to get outdoors.
Pretty much whenever the wind blows. I would say on average in the wintertime, I'm probably out at least once a week, probably 3 times a week.
To connect with people.
The kiting community is really a helpful community. Everybody helps each other, and at first I started learning this in Minnesota and thought, well, it's the Minnesota nice thing, right? But it's not. It's actually around the world.
You might want to drive it a little bit up into the wind.
And find happiness in the blowing snow.
When you find yourself out here and you're kiting on your own and you're just smiling to yourself, it's not political. You're not laughing at somebody that you work with, their joke. Just the pure joy.
My next guest is the photojournalist who produced the segment you just watched. His name is Jeffrey Wilson, and he's my new collaborator extraordinaire for all things local image and On Location TV 19. Welcome, Jeffrey, to this side of the camera.
Thank you. Yes, it's a little uneasy being on this side of the camera. That's why I stay behind the camera, but
it's good to have you in front of the camera for this time anyway.
glad to be here.
Folks might not know this, but you've actually been with us for about a year and a half now. You were a photojournalist with our government television network part of our operation, and you wanted to take a stab at this role as a producer, photojournalist extraordinaire for local image on location TV. Tell us why you wanted to make that transition.
Sure. Definitely, I like a challenge, and being able to step into more of a producing role and kind of helping write and produce the show definitely intrigued me in moving up that way. Also, a lot of the stories that Local Image has told over my year and a half, watching the show and seeing what Scott, my predecessor, did and all that kind of stuff, really, there were the kind of stories that I found myself really enjoying and being like, I want to tell those stories.
Yeah,
and so
absolutely.
being able to kind of move into that position, it kind of all came together.
Well, it was an easy decision for me to have you move in. That was great. So we're glad to have you on board. And as we just saw that first segment that you've produced with Local Image so far, tell us a little bit about that segment and what the challenges as a producer and you kind of did it all. So
Yeah.
what were the challenges there?
The weather was the biggest challenge.
Yeah.
It was cold. The wind was blowing. The snow was blowing. But I find myself, those are the most fun stories to tell is when there's a challenge like that. You know, you're out there and you're in the elements. You know, you're capturing what's going on. It's a lot more real to me. Mm-hmm. You know, that's you know, being out there and telling those stories is a lot of fun.
And so as a photojournalist, when you have to, you know, shoot and do the interviews and, you know, capture this stuff on your own, what appeals to you with that?
Being able to craft the story. It's easy to kind of, you know, when somebody else is telling the story, you know what you need to capture, but kind of having the challenge of not only do I need to go out and capture what's going on, but then weave it into the story.
Right, right. And, you know, adventure has kind of followed you in your life for some time now. I know you served in the military. Can you tell us about that?
Sure, yes. I was an airborne cavalry scout. We did reconnaissance was our main objective. I was stationed at Fort Polk, Louisiana, with a training brigade. So we were the OPFOR for all of the units that would come through before deploying to go through training exercises to kind of get them prepared as realistically as possible before a deployment. So they would come in, we would be the bad guys, and we'd put them through, as stressful situations as we could, making sure they weren't sleeping at night, keeping them up, attacking their convoys, that sort of thing, to kind of, that way when they got in country, they kind of were like, okay, we've been through this before, we know how to react to this, we know what to do, what not to do, that sort of thing. And that was a lot of fun. Taught me a lot about myself, what I wanted to do with life. And
how did it influence your decision to pursue what you're doing now?
I had always done photography and video as a hobby, but never really thought of it as a career. When I was there, I kind of was an unofficial photographer for our unit, did a lot of pictures, and it really kind of motivated me that this is what I want to do, and can I make a job out of it? Started researching schools as it was getting close to my time of getting out, and kind of went full steam ahead. It gave me the motivation to pick something, and then this is the direction I want my life to go in.
It's your passion.
Yes.
That makes a big difference. You also have a passion for your kids, your family, a little bit of your personal background.
I do, yes. I'm been married for 6 years now, and I've got 3 young children, 7 months, 2.5, and 5.5.
Oh my
goodness.
goodness.
It's very, very busy at home with everybody going on. They're all starting to kind of get into activities. The oldest is in kindergarten. The middle child started a preschool program a couple days a week. They're in dance and starting gymnastics. So it's really kind of, life is taking off in many different directions.
Yeah.
Right now.
Well, we're so pleased to have you as a part of our team, still within our production department. It's been great, and I'll get to know you even more, and vice versa, I'm afraid, as we go along. But
it's going to be fun.
I think, as you know, Scott had some big shoes to fill when he left, and I think you're doing a great job. And so everyone will look forward to more of your stories in the future. So thanks so much.
Thank you.
Now we need to get you back behind the camera as we
where I
continue the
belong.
show. Where you belong, for at least for today. So,
Yes.
All right, thank you so much. Well, we get Jeffrey back behind the camera. Let's take a look at some clips from the Inside Healthcare Show, a program now in its 10th year here at On Location TV. And when I come back, Jodi Ritacca, the show's host, will be joining me on the set. So stay with us.
Hello everyone and welcome to Inside Healthcare. We have a great program for you. We begin with a state-of-the-art cancer fighting treatment. It's called CyberKnife. And to tell us all about it, we're very pleased to have with us Dr. Elizabeth Cameron with the Healthy's Medical Director of Radiation Oncology. So thank you for being with us, Dr. Cameron.
Thank you, Jodi.
So exactly what is CyberKnife, and how does it differ from other treatments that are available to patients?
Okay, so first of all,
Travis Lerke has been diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma. It's a cancer of the immune system. Cancerous cells have spread throughout his lymphatic system. Every other Friday, he comes to the Healthy's Cancer Care Center at St. John's Hospital for chemotherapy. He says living with cancer has taught him important life lessons.
It's been an eye-opener and putting things into perspective, which is also a blessing.
August of '08, he was diagnosed. And then I was diagnosed in October of '09. And the day that I had my port put in, Carl's mom was diagnosed with lymphoma.
It's really feel overwhelmed. I think is probably the best description.
Welcome back, Jodi. It's been a while, 10 years. Oh my goodness.
I know, I'm so glad to be here and glad to have the show here on Location TV 19 and throughout pretty much the East Metro part of the Twin Cities.
It's a fabulous show. Thanks in great part to you. You help co-produce it with us, and you're the host, obviously. And that fits so well with your role at Healthy's. Tell us about that.
I'm Senior Public Relations Specialist and Media Producer, and I've been there 11 years now.
Oh my goodness.
And do public relations for the entire Healthy system, which includes St. John's Hospital, St. Joe's Hospital, Woodwinds Health Campus in Woodbury, Bethesda Hospital by the state capitol. We have 15 clinics, Health East Medical Transportation, home care. So it's a big job, but I enjoy doing it.
Yeah, and you have a great background for it too. Before you were doing that role, tell us what you were doing before.
Well, I've been with Health East, as I said, 11 years, and before that I was in television. I'm a former TV anchor, producer, reporter, and I did that for 25 years, 10 years at KSTP TV in, here in the Twin Cities.
Yeah, and Emmy award-winning, multiple Emmy nominated person that you are, producer. We have the Emmy here from the show. One of the episodes won an Emmy.
That was very exciting to be able
ago.
to get that. Yeah.
Absolutely. What are the challenges of putting that program together, especially when you're dealing with these experts and patients and so on forth?
I would say probably one of the biggest challenges is trying to get some of these medical experts, physicians who have extremely busy schedule, as trying to make an appointment with a physician, how difficult that can be. So sometimes it takes a lot of planning. Like we look ahead and hope that they don't have something that comes up.
Right.
And so if we can get on their schedule months in advance, that hopefully that'll still work when it comes time for taping.
Yeah.
So it's always an honor to have them take time out of their busy schedule and to share their expertise with our viewers.
Yeah. What were a couple of your favorite episodes?
When I was thinking back, I just can't believe it's 10
I
years.
know.
But looking back, my favorite ones are always the patient stories, having the patients here willing to share their story, share it in a video format, or even to have them here on the set. Mm-hmm. There's so many of them.
There are.
I think back to the woman who just was out gardening. The next day she knew that she was fighting for her life. She had this rare infection, and she lost her limbs, and yet she had this incredible spirit, and it's just so inspirational.
It is.
Yeah,
absolutely. And I have some stats. It's quite amazing when you stop and kind of look at some of these stats. 72 million estimated viewers since the start 10 years ago. That's awesome.
Isn't that incredible?
That's incredible.
Yes.
It's just amazing to me, but not surprising. Now that it's been on YouTube for about 4 years
Something
now,
like that, yeah.
over 10,000 views on YouTube. That's amazing.
That isn't even our main audience, I don't believe.
Yeah, it's incredible. Congratulations on
you.
that. What's ahead for this year, this celebration
hopefully
year?
we're going to be doing more of the same, and I'm hoping to bring back some of the patients who have been with us in the last 10 years to see how they're doing now and how their lives have changed or grown since we talked with them last time. And
where can people find out more about this show?
Well, obviously they can go online on Location TV 19 and also on Health East website. And then if they want to check any of the shows, they just go to YouTube and Inside Healthcare and then put a month and a date on it, and they'll find the show there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, again, congratulations. 10 years is awesome in the world of television.
I'm so grateful for it.
You do such a great job with the show, so it's no surprise that it's racking up so many views. All the best to you. Keep bringing these Emmys here.
All right, thanks. We'll work on that.
All right, sounds good.
Thanks, Judy.
Well, that's all the time we have for this show, but before we go, a quick shout out on behalf of the Maplewood North Lions, who invite everyone to come out for their 9th annual all-you-can-eat chili feed on Thursday, February 26th from 4 to 7:30 p.m. at Golden's Restaurant on Highway 61 in Maplewood. Sounds delicious. Meanwhile, a very happy and heart-healthy Valentine's Day to all of you from all of us. And until next month, I'm Judy Skyboss, and I do thank you for watching Local Image.